Hello, everyone. This is Delvin, and a warm welcome to each and every one of you at MUSC Red Devils NCR. And yes, we do have one game of the season, which is arguably the biggest game of our season, but it still is a pretty long wait. So before I get into this video, please go ahead, do like this video, do subscribe to our channel. We want to reach 2,500 subscribers by the end of June. So please go ahead and help us in achieving that goal. Your support does mean a lot to us. And also go ahead and press the bell icon so that you're notified for every video that comes out of this channel. Now, back to the topic at hand. Our season has been a huge roller coaster ride of emotions. There's been happy moments, there's been sad moments, there's been moments where we've been right down there in the dumps, and it sometimes it made you question the legitimacy of what exactly was unfurling before us, especially when it came to the start of the season when everything was practically a full blown crisis. But over the course of the season, we've seen the team get more resilient. We've seen the team get more coherent, more united, and the results then later on spoke for themselves. And throughout the season, there were a few games which encapsulated the entirety of our season, where I spoke about being down in the dumps, the highs, the lows, so on and so forth. I'm talking as far as the Premier League season is concerned. And here are my list of 5 games which perfectly capture the essence of our season. Let's start right from the beginning. These are my list of 5 games. Obviously, you guys could have a different opinion about it. And if you do not hesitate to go in the comment section and make us understand what are your games which perfectly encapsulate United season. It could be 1 game, it could be 2, it could be more than 2. Go ahead and let it go in the comment section. So here is my list. The first game obviously is that 4-0 abomination against Brentford. The Ten Hag era got off to a rocky start in our loss against Brighton on the opening day of the season at Old Trafford, and it was expected that United would turn a corner and improve as far as performances are concerned with the game against Brentford. And Brentford seemed to have been hamstrung by the departure of Eriksen, who joined us on a free transfer this summer. So it felt that it was the perfect game to bounce back winning ways. However, what followed was 35 minutes of absolute skullduggery, where United first of all debuted that abomination of a third kit, which up until now is one of the worst kits that I have ever seen. But what was even worse after that was the performance, and 4 different goals with the entire defense at fault for each of the goals, including De Gea. So there were a variety of mistakes which induced the goal, but the most glaring one of those was the repeated insistence to play from the back, which became our demise in that game. 35 minutes, 4-0. Such was the abject nature of that performance that Gary Neville, who was commentating for that game, said that watching United play against Brentford is watching an under-9 side play against a team of full-grown men. That was as scathing an indictment as possible, and it meant that Erik ten Hag's reign began with 2 big losses, bottom of the table. The only goal that we scored was an own goal. However, why this game encapsulated a season is because the aftermath of the game involved that 13.5-kilometer run where everyone, including Ten Hag himself, ran that entire distance, and maybe that was the show of defiance that attracted or commanded the respect of the rest of the side. And that is why for me this was the first game that captures United's season in an essence, where things were absolutely down in the dumps. The second game for me was the game that immediately followed the Brentford game, and that was the game against Liverpool. 2 losses, 6 goals conceded. We were only thinking about by how much we would lose against Liverpool in the next game of the season, in spite of the fact that it was at Old Trafford. There was absolutely no sense of optimism or no sense of possibility of any sort of a result being nicked also. And we were just hoping that it was a mercy. It was like a mercy killing at that point, where we thought that Liverpool would just run roughshod over us and we would just roll over. But what happened in that game was anything but. It seemed like that run had an effect, and every player in that game during the course of 90 minutes put in an absolutely mega performance. It all started right from that Lisandro Martinez shove on Mo Salah, which on the face value of things will not amount to much, but then that show of defiance, that show of fight by any sort of United player, which was so missing throughout the course of the previous season, entering into this season, the first two games, was just the shot in the arm that this entire United side needed. And then what happened was United, being the better side, not only winning, being the better side throughout the course of those 90 minutes of football. We outpressed, outran, outthunk Liverpool, and it was there to see. Mo Salah isolated, Virgil van Dijk given a tough time, Andy Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold were ripped to shreds by Sancho and Marcus Rashford playing on the sides. All in all, it was the performance that woke the sleeping giant, and from there on, our season actually began in right earnest. So after the downfall, after the setback, came that comeback where it felt like Peter Drury said, Old Trafford breathes again. And that was exactly what it was. It was a form of CPR that was given to our season then, where we could finally breathe. The third game for me is that 2-0 win against Spurs at Old Trafford. The perfect Ten Hag game, the perfect performance of United in the course of the season up until then. Spurs entered that game on the back of their best ever Premier League start, and they were fancy to get a result against us, even though we ourselves were on a good run of form then. But considering the fact that Spurs were winning games, and they were in a better position than us at that point. They were second in the table for a brief period up until they played, before they played us, and it was expected that they would be providing a tough fight to us. But what happened in that game was anything but Spurs being a tough fight. United played the perfect Ten Hag game. The fullbacks pressed high and wide. We did not give a second's free time for any of their defensive players when they had the ball. We were all over them like a rash. Harry Kane was absolutely isolated that entire game. As far as I remember, he could barely have a shot on target there. And while it was one of the best performances of the Ten Hag era in our first season, that game also encapsulates United's season from a point of view of the number of challenges that the manager had to face. And at that point, this amounted to arguably his biggest challenge of his managerial career. And that was the Cristiano Ronaldo walk-off, which happened during that game. Around the 80th or 85th minute, Cristiano Ronaldo decided that he had enough of the game, he watched enough, and he just walked off Old Trafford, the Stratford End, into the dressing room without even bothering to pose for the fans or autograph for the fans, so on and so forth, which left a pretty bad taste in the minds of a lot of the fans, because that was a brilliant game. We played our hearts out, we won the 3 points, we got everything in order, but that was a blot, and that was another facet of the United season where we're brilliant, but there are still underlying problems. And that particular game was a microcosm of United in general, where it was absolutely perfect. So that was my third game. The fourth game for me was that Manchester derby, the reverse fixture at Old Trafford. We had lost the previous game at the Etihad 6-3, and Eric Ten Hag gave a rousing post-match press conference to Pep saying, "Thank you for the lessons, Pep. We've learned them the hard way. This won't happen again." So those lines at that point sounded a little cocky, and he would have been absolutely slaughtered for it had things not gone our way. But the performance in the Manchester derby once again was another brilliant performance, a textbook performance of Ten Hag pragmatism at its very best. It was the first half in itself was an astute display of tactical chess by both managers, where Pep tried to do something, Ten Hag countering it with his own variety or own variation of his attacking and defensive repertoire. And you could see two teams jostling for tactical superiority, whether it was in the defensive areas, the midfield area, or the attacking areas. And it all came to a head after that Grealish goal, and it seemed for the vast variety of last season, for the vast majority of it, United were considered to be a team with a soft underbelly, and that we would give our heads away on the first sign of discernible pressure. But this season, United built themselves as a reputation of a headstrong unit, where even falling one goal behind did not dampen our spirit, did not dampen our momentum, and that was exactly what happened. We conceded the first goal, but that did not that only seemed to rouse our spirits, as what transpired afterwards was an astute game from United. Aaron Wan-Bissaka sending Rodri, Bernardo Silva for kebabs, then Garnacho doing Garnacho things, and obviously Marcus Rashford being the center of attraction for two reasons. One, the bigger one, obviously being the winner, but the second reason was that ghost offside call, which I believe was onside. So that was another brilliant performance by United. That was the peak of our season, where it genuinely felt like, well ahead of schedule. We went on. That was another high profile team that we beat at home. We'd already beaten Spurs, we'd already beaten Arsenal, we'd already beaten Liverpool at Old Trafford, and now we added Manchester City to our list of big teams who came to Old Trafford and suffered defeat at our hands. So that was my fourth game. The fifth and the last game of the season is arguably the most disappointing result in Premier League, but it also was that type of season that we had. But before I come to that, special mention to these following games. The 4-1 win against Chelsea, which practically rubber stamped our entry into this season's Champions League. The win against Leicester, which was another example of champagne Ten Hag football at its finest. And last but not the least, third game, which deserves a special mention, is that win against Leeds United. We were dog shit for vast majorities of those games. We were second best, but somehow, like I said, mental strength, the headstrong nature, and the cohesiveness of this team made sure that we ran out 2-0 winners in that game. So these were the honorable mentions, but now comes the fifth and the final game that perfectly encapsulates United's season, which was that 7-0 devastation at Anfield. So to put things into perspective, we entered that game riding on the crest of a wave, and Liverpool coincidentally happened to have their worst run of Premier League form during that stretch, where it felt like whatever they touched turned into rust. And they were losing games left, right, and center. They were not their best. Injuries, loss of form, whether their game plan stagnated, it still remains life's greatest mysteries. But we entered that game full of confidence, expecting to get a result. And for the first 40 minutes, we started and we played the game like we were the only team likely to get a result out of that. We missed chances left, right, and center. And when Cody Gakpo scored the first goal in the first half, it still felt that we were the better side, and we would have done a much better job in the second half. But what followed was a brain fade of biblical proportions, where we just forgot how to turn up, we forgot how to play, we forgot to do the basics right. Martinez was turned inside out. The defense did not turn up at all, and the only reason why that game was remembered was for Weghorst touching that "this is Anfield" sign. So all in all, it was a pretty diabolical performance by United on that game, despite of the fact that United did not do much wrong in that game, at least as far as the first half is concerned. So these were the 5 games for me, which encapsulated United's emotional season throughout that. The first game consisted of a crisis. The second game consisted of the ability to fight off a crisis. The third game was approaching the peak of a sustained period of feel good vibes and positivity. The fourth game against City was the crescendo of that positivity, and the fifth one again was a cycle of cautious optimism, despite of the heavy nature of the defeat. So this was my exhaustive list of the games that summarized United's season as a whole on an emotional perspective. Like I said earlier in the video, feel free to go ahead and post your opinions as to which games for you perfectly summed up United's season. We would absolutely love to hear your opinions on this matter. With that being said, thank you so much for tuning into this episode. This is Delvin signing off. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Go ahead, follow us on our Instagram and Twitter, and also do not forget to join our ever growing WhatsApp family. Up until then, this is Delvin wishing all of you a goodbye. I will see you all on the other side. Take care, stay safe, stay healthy, and GGMU to all.